Let's talk about the Steelers because, boy, have they made some moves this offseason. We're going to cover everything that they've done this offseason, but let's start off with the latest news. They just went out and they traded for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. Let's start off with the Jalen Ramsey trade first. They traded Minkah Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey. Minkah Fitzpatrick is still one of the best safeties in football in terms of being a cover safety. He was a very good safety over the last few years with the Steelers, but their secondary hasn't been their strong suit. The cornerback position has been a sore spot for this organization for a very long time, dating back to the time to where they selected Artie Burns in the first round. Their cornerback situation has not been good. Joey Porter Jr. has been a solid player, deals with a lot of penalties in terms of being a holding machine at times, but he was their true number one cornerback last year on the outside. By adding in Jalen Ramsey, he could play inside that nickel position. And I think that's the best spot for Jalen Ramsey. Now, he could play all over your secondary. I know a lot of people will say, well, why are you trading Minkah Fitzpatrick, who is a top-end safety, who's only 28 years old, for an older cornerback in Jalen Ramsey? Well, I look at it from this standpoint here. The age doesn't bother me as much as other people. If you can still play, you can still play. I know people in their late 20s in the NFL and even in their early 30s, they play better than most players in their early 20s and their mid 20s. So if you're a good football player, that's all that I'm looking at. But I understand the age concern here. Jalen Ramsey can play all over your secondary. If you're having problems at the safety position, you slide in Jalen Ramsey there. You need an outside cornerback, you put in Jalen Ramsey. He is still a top cornerback to have at this level, and he's going to be your true number one. Now, Joey Porter Jr. can slide down to being your true number two. It's a strong secondary now, and now you also have Darius Slay, who you added in free agency. He's going to be your third cornerback. And I said this over the last few months, whenever I talk about the Steelers and when they first signed Darius Slay. Darius Slay is not the same cornerback that he was with the Lions. He's not the same cornerback that he was in his first year with the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's fine. This is the problem that I have with this organization. When they get these older cornerbacks, they're still not in the prime of their careers, and it's the same with Darius Slay. Look at this, for example. They signed Patrick Peterson, who was way past his prime. They had him playing the safety position because of so many injuries at this spot a few years back. You signed Joe Hayden. He had a couple of good years with the Steelers, but he was behind his prime with the Cleveland Browns. I look at it from this standpoint. Jalen Ramsey is still a very good football player. Joey Porter Jr., he's still young. He's going to continue to get better to stop the holding penalties. Darius Slay is a very good veteran. Now you have two veterans that can help Joey Porter Jr. with those holding issues. And I look at Darius Slay as a number 3 cornerback. That's perfect. But in a perfect world, you still want him to be a rotational corner. You'll bring in Corey. You'll bring in Benny Bishop off the bench to be those rotational guys. Now, Benny Bishop is a better cornerback than Corey. But Corey had some big-time moments last season when he was fully healthy, especially against the Denver Broncos. So I look at it from this standpoint. Your secondary right now is better. Losing Minkah Fitzpatrick does hurt. But you have Deshaun Elliott, who was a very good player last season. 73 solo tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 1 interception, 6 pass deflections. And this is the one thing with Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's not going to go out there and have the crazy seasons that he's had before. In his first year with the Steelers, he was a superstar safety in terms of having high interception numbers, but teams got away from throwing his way in the middle of the field because he was just an amazing player. If you're not going out there and having the high interception numbers, that doesn't mean that you're still not an elite player at your position. I'm still a huge fan of Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm not going to come on here and dog him out because he's no longer with the Steelers. He is still a very good football player. Losing Minkah does hurt, but you have Deshaun Elliott and you did sign Juan Thornhill. Now, Juan Thornhill, in my opinion, he's a very inconsistent safety. I don't see him going out there and being a very good safety with the Steelers for the entire season. But you do have that versatility once again with Jalen Ramsey. The rest of your defense is set. They had one of the best defenses in football last season. And I look at it from the linebacker situation here. Peyton Wilson, you hope that he could be your top interior linebacker. I know that you brought in Patrick Queen a year ago, did not have the season that he was looking for. But I look at Patrick Queen, you know what you're getting with him. He wasn't a superstar with the Baltimore Ravens until they made the trade to bring in Roquan Smith. He's better off as a number 2 middle linebacker, and that's okay. It's not me saying that he's a bad player. But Peyton Wilson, that's the guy that you want to go out there and to be the leader in that middle linebacking room. Having him and Patrick Queen is a very good inside linebacker duo. But Peyton Wilson was phenomenal last year in his rookie season. You worry about the injuries that he suffered at the college level, but last year he was very durable. You have him. You have Patrick Queen, who's a veteran, who's good at stopping the run, solid against tight ends. Behind those two players, you have Cole Holcomb. Now, Cole Holcomb missed all of last season, dealing with a knee injury that he suffered the year before against Tennessee Titans. He was a very good interior linebacker. They have struggled with this position since Ryan Shazier went down with that neck injury numerous years ago against the Cincinnati Bengals, and I hope that he's doing well right now in his life. But I like the linebacking core that they have. The pass rushing position. You guys know how I feel about TJ Watt. He's one of the best pass rushers in football, one of the best offensive players. And he's due to get a contract extension sooner than later. You have to be careful here. TJ Watt has been your best player since you drafted him. He has been phenomenal. 11.5 sacks last year. That's a down year for him. That was the 8th most sacks in football, but he had 6 forced fumbles. That was the first most. And saying that 11.5 sacks is a down year for a player like TJ Watt is crazy, but that's how great he is. I would give him a 3-year contract extension. Now, I'll fully load that contract for the first couple of years. Then you could possibly move off of TJ Watt, or maybe he retires in the next few years. But TJ Watt, he's still young enough to go out there and have a great impact with this organization. And look at the numbers without TJ Watt. They can barely win football games when he's not on the field. Has dealt with injuries in the past, has been banged up. But when he's been fully healthy, easily a top defensive player. He won Defensive Player of the Year one time in his career. Should have won it at least 2 to 3 times. But he's a great player. Alex Highsmith, very good number 2 pass rusher alongside TJ Watt. Dealt with injuries last season. I'll never forget the breakout year that he had when TJ Watt went down with that pec injury. They need more out of Alex Highsmith in terms of him being a better rushing defender and going against the run in general. But having him out there alongside TJ Watt, if he's fully healthy, is one of the best pass rushing duos in all of football. So you're set there. Keanu Benton, very good rotational defensive tackle. They drafted him to possibly come in and be the replacement for Cameron Hayward long term. But Keanu Benton hasn't caught on just yet. Maybe he catches on this season. Cameron Hayward is still holding things down as being one of the best defensive tackles in football. 8 sacks last season. But he is getting older. That's why he selected Derek Harmon in the first round, who can play defensive end, can play defensive tackle. The one thing with the Steelers, they had a top rushing unit last year. But as the season progressed, when their offense got worse with Russell Wilson and the same with Justin Fields at times, you saw what the Philadelphia Eagles did. They ran the football down their throat, used time possession. You saw the Baltimore Ravens did. They ran the football down their throat. They used time possession over and over again. And you look to the sideline, you just see Coach Tomlin, he's shaking his head. Now, your offense has to have a positive impact here to help out your defense, but the defense are lacking against top offensive lines. Look at what happened in that playoff game. Derrick Henry just blew past him. The same with him and Lamar Jackson. So adding in this talent that's aggressive against the run, and they should be aggressive on the back end against the pass, that should definitely help you out. Instead of now depending on your safeties in this defense, they're going to depend on those cornerbacks. So if Jalen Ramsey doesn't work out, let's just say he falls off a cliff, this team may be in trouble. They're going to depend a lot on their press man coverage. And this is already a Steelers team. They love to run man coverage with Coach Austin as a defensive coordinator. When they go to zone coverage, you see them get picked apart in Tampa too. And I look at Coach Austin. He needs to be better as a defensive coordinator and be more creative with how you use Jalen Ramsey now. Now, you may run into this argument to where they're adding too many names. They've already added in a very good draft class, in my opinion. But you go out there, you're bringing in Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Jonnu Smith, Jalen Ramsey. That's a lot of turnover within just a few months. You have to be careful here. Coach Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game since 2016. But the one thing that he's done a very good job of with the Steelers organization is managing players during the regular season by adding them in on short notice. And they did this with Minkah Fitzpatrick within his first year. They just need their defense to just be a little bit better than they were last season. The defense is not the problem here with this organization. It's been your offense since Big Ben went down with that elbow injury. And even Big Ben his last season. Big Ben was able to throw the football around at a better pace than Russell Wilson, and the same with Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph. That's been your Achilles heel now. And usually that's going to happen when your Hall of Fame quarterback retires or he goes down with an injury. Look at the New England Patriots. They haven't been the same since Tom Brady. But this is a little bit different here with this organization because you added in that veteran last year in Russell Wilson. You had that young quarterback in Justin Fields who hasn't proved that he could be a star just yet in this league, but they were hoping that they could go out there and make a dangerous run last year. But by going out there and adding in Aaron Rodgers, and this is the offensive segment of this video, I look at Aaron Rodgers different. I know a lot of people, they hate Aaron Rodgers because of things off the field. I don't know the man personally, so I'm not going to come at his character. But I will say this about Aaron Rodgers. I wish that he would have never went to the New York Jets. His first year, he only played a couple of snaps, tears his Achilles. His last season with the Jets was not bad statistically. They lost 7 games by 1 score. Aaron Rodgers proved that he could still go out there and throw the football at an elite level. Now, I will say this. What really hurt Aaron Rodgers when he went over to the Jets, it seemed like they gave him a lot of power and they were catering towards Aaron Rodgers. You had Nathaniel Hackett as an offensive coordinator. They brought in Devontae Adams. But he didn't ask for them to bring in Devontae Adams. That's what ownership did. He went out there, he fired the general manager, fired Robert Saleh. Nathaniel Hackett's no longer calling plays. They go with Ty Downing. Coach Brick's your interim head coach. That's a lot of turnover for anyone. They expected for Aaron Rodgers to come in and to be the savior of their franchise. They're not expecting for Aaron Rodgers to come in and to save the Steelers. They're expecting for him to come in and just help them get over the hump with their amazing defense that they already have. Even though they're adding in so many different names right now with this roster, the one thing that is still the same with this organization, Coach Tomlin, he's still here at the head coaching spot. Arthur Smith, he's coming back in year number 2. Coach Austin, he's back as defensive coordinator. So it's continuity there with the coaching staff. And Aaron Rodgers, he just have to come in and be mini general manager. He just has to come in, sling the football around and get them out of tough situations here and there. And that's it. Aaron Rodgers did not have a true run game last year. And we know this with Coach Tomlin. He's been saying this since he first took over this job. I think it's pretty stale at this point, but he has the same identity points. Go out there, run the football, stop the run. If you can give Aaron Rodgers a consistent run game, you can see him go out there and still be a very good passer of the football. He had the 7th most passing touchdowns last year with 28 to 11 interceptions. 3,897 passing yards. That was the 8th most in the NFL. And I look at it from this standpoint here. He missed time last year in the offseason with offseason workouts because he was going out there and he was attending to other deals. I don't know what he had going on in his personal life, but it seemed like everything was going okay. He showed up with the Steelers so far in offseason workouts. He's been working out with DK Metcalf. So that's already different there. Will he be hard to work with? We'll see. In the past, he's rubbed coaches the wrong way. He hasn't rubbed players the wrong way. You listen to Clay Matthews. He loves this man. The same with Devontae Adams. He followed him around. He loves Aaron Rodgers. The same with Jordy Nelson. Jordan Love said he came out. He had a positive impact on him. He's a player's guy. As far as being a coach's guy, we'll see. We'll see if he bumps heads with Mike Tomlin. But Mike Tomlin dealt with Big Ben, who had a huge ego as well. So I look at Aaron Rodgers. He comes into the Steelers organization. He's an upgrade over Russell Wilson. He's going to get the football out quicker, and he's a huge upgrade over Justin Fields. It just comes down to what type of offense do you want to run. And Aaron Rodgers should fit this offense with the Steelers here. Arthur Smith. He loves to run 2 tight end sets. We saw him go out there and do this last year with Darnell Washington and Big Pat. It didn't work out in their favor. They only had one true number 1 threat on the outside in George Pickens, but George Pickens, he's no longer here. They traded him to the Dallas Cowboys. You add in DK Metcalf, who's one of the most explosive wide receivers in football. You trade a 2nd round pick for him. You gave him a 5-year deal, $150 million. I know that's a lot of money on base value, but they can move off of this contract sooner than later. DK Metcalf now comes in. He's that true outside wide receiver that you're looking for. I wish they would have kept George Pickens. Outside of DK Metcalf, you have a lot of question marks at this position. Now, Calvin Austin III was able to step up in big-time moments last year. 548 receiving yards on 36 receptions. 4 receiving touchdowns, average 15 yards a catch. Can he go out there and can he really be a consistent number 2? Last year, at times, he wasn't a consistent number 2. A lot of that is because of how bad the system was with Arthur Smith, how bad the play calling was, and the simple fact that Russell Wilson could not see certain portions of the field, and he will hold on to the football for a very long time. This is the one thing with Aaron Rodgers. He's going to get rid of the football quick. I can see them running a lot of screen passes with Calvin Austin III, a bunch of tunnel screens, because of the speed that he has when he catches the football and the moves that he can make after the catch. I really like Calvin Austin III as a player, especially as a deep threat. Roman Wilson, he's entering year number 2. Comes over from Michigan, missed all of his rookie season, dealing with injuries. And it's very weird. Roman Wilson was eligible to play in some games last season, but they just didn't push him out there. Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, who's a general manager, have a lot to say about him towards the end of this video. They have high aspirations for him. They view Calvin Austin III as a number 2. They view Roman Wilson as coming in and being a very good number 2 to number 3 wide receiver early on. This is going to be a run-heavy football team for the simple fact that Roman Wilson played with Michigan. He did not put up big-time numbers at Michigan, and the same with J.J. McCarthy because of this simple fact. Look at who the head coach was, Coach Harbaugh. They love to run the football, and Roman Wilson was a willing blocker over and over again, even though he's not the biggest wide receiver in the room. And the same with DK Metcalf. We've seen him at times. He'll be a willing blocker. And back to the George Pickens conversation. I know why they traded him. A lot of problems on and off the field, showing up late for games, giving up on plays, running the wrong routes, dropping passes. That last game against the Cincinnati Bengals basically cemented his fate with the Steelers. They let him go. But the maturity is going to be in the locker room, in the wide receiving room. They're going to be okay there. Because adding in Jonnu Smith, you can now run that 2 tight end set with him and Big Pat. Darnell Washington is a very good run blocking tight end. As a receiving tight end, he's just not there. And I don't think that he ever will be there, and that's okay. He could fit in a huge role here. You can run a heavy package to where you have 3 tight ends on the field. Darnell Washington, Pat at his position, Jonnu Smith. And I look at Jonnu Smith. He's coming off a career high with the Miami Dolphins. 88 catches, 884 receiving yards, 8 receiving touchdowns, average 10 yards a catch. You look at him with Atlanta. Look at who the head coach was. Arthur Smith had 582 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. With the Tennessee Titans, he came onto the scene. Who was the offensive play caller? Arthur Smith. He's going to get the most out of him. Now, I'm not expecting for him to go out there and have the season that he had with the Dolphins with the Steelers. That's not going to happen. You had a lot of motion plays with Coach McDaniel in terms of motion with Jalen Waddle and the same with Tyreek Hill. The Steelers, they just don't have those proven wide receivers just yet. It's going to put a lot of stress on these tight ends. But the one thing that Jonnu Smith can do at a better rate right now than Pat is create separation over and over again. And Pat's a very good receiving tight end. This is the problem with Pat. He has played with terrible quarterbacks. He hasn't had that breakout season since his rookie year with Big Ben. And Big Ben's a veteran. Russell Wilson didn't give him the football enough. The same with Justin Fields. He had to play with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Mitch Trubisky. That's not a good quarterback situation for any player in football, especially a tight end that's going through the growing pains right now. But Pat, he can come in. He can be that number 1 tight end for you. He can be that number 2 tight end. They're not going to rely much on their wide receivers. They're going to go out there, run a 2 tight end set. Play action bootlegs, take the deep shot down the field to DK Metcalf. They may put him in the slot every now and then. If you question, can DK Metcalf play the slot at certain points in times, go back and look at that game against New England Patriots, and you'll see. He's explosive coming out of his breaks. And he could be a huge target coming across the middle of the field. And that's the one thing with Aaron Rodgers. He's going to throw deep down the middle of the field more consistently than Russell Wilson, and the same with Justin Fields. Now, the mobility is not there, because he tore his Achilles with the New York Jets in his first year. But he can still spin the football. He can still get outside the pocket in certain situations with play action bootlegs. In order for this entire thing to work, in order for the Steelers to finally win that playoff game since 2016, it comes down to one certain group. And it comes down to the offensive line group. Broderick Jones has not been a good player at the left tackle position. But usually it takes time for tackles to develop. So far, he is a bust. And I'm rooting for Broderick Jones. He's had some solid moments, but he's had a lot of terrible moments. They need him to be better at the left tackle position. You spent a first-round pick on this man. Isaac at the left guard position, he's solid. Zach Frazier was a very good center last season, and he was not supposed to be the starting center. They went with Herbig in the preseason. He hurt his shoulder. They went with Zach Frazier for the rest of the year. He was phenomenal. You look at the right guard position, Mason McCormick. He was a very good player. Troy Fautanu missed majority of last season, dealing with a dislocated knee. But in the snaps he played, he looked very good. This is a young offensive line. They're going to go through some growing pains. But as the season went on, the offensive line, you saw them go out there and have those big-time moments. In the playoffs against the Baltimore Ravens, it got ugly. But they're young. It comes down to this offensive line coach. And I don't know if he's the right guy for this job, but we're going to see soon than later. This is a Super Bowl type of offseason for the Steelers. And it's not me saying that they're going to go out there, they're going to win a Super Bowl this year. They're all in. They're all in that organization. What I think and what you think are maybe two different things than what the Steelers think. But they're going out there, they're making a move to bring in this veteran quarterback and Aaron Rodgers. They waited on this man for months to make his decision. They went out there, they traded that second round pick for DK Metcalf. These are things that the Steelers haven't done in the past with Kevin Colbert when he was the general manager. They just didn't make moves like this. They drafted their players, they developed them, and then they paid them later on. And if they didn't work out, they moved on from them. Key example, Jarvis Jones, Artie Burns. They wanted those players to work out. They didn't. They moved on from them. And I look at Omar Khan. He has been so aggressive so far with this organization. And he came out and he said that he had a different philosophy than everyone else. And Mike Tomlin makes jokes in the press conferences. He'll say, man, he's aggressive. He wants to win the Super Bowl soon than later. Yes, he does. And I look at Coach Tomlin. You can't win a playoff game soon than later. They're going to have to get rid of you. And I've already had my gripes before in the past about Coach Tomlin. A lot of people, they come out, they defend him. They'll say, well, he hasn't had a superstar quarterback since Big Ben. I fully understand that. But if you're good enough to get to the playoffs over and over again, and this coach has been able to do that with subpar quarterback play, you mean to tell me that you can't win a playoff game at least? I haven't won a playoff game since 2016. It's getting ridiculous to this point. So right now with the Steelers, go out there, win this division, possibly, and win that playoff game. That's what it comes down to. That's the standard. I'm not going to let Coach Tomlin off the hook. He said the standard is the standard. I know his standard is never having a losing season, going out there, going 9-8, going 10-7, one done to playoffs. No, that is not the standard for his organization historically. This is a golden franchise historically, just like the Dallas Cowboys, the 49ers, and the Patriots. They go out there every year for them in Super Bowl or bust. I'm not going to let them get away from that. That's the standard that I hold them to. And I look at the Steelers last year. They were in a good spot, especially when they started Russell Wilson for the first couple of games when he came in, when they moved off of Justin Fields. They had a lead in this division. Then they lost their last 5 games, and they got blown out by the Ravens in the playoffs. We could talk about injuries all we want, but that comes down to bad coaching, and it comes down to not the right adjustments being made on the offensive end. And another move the Steelers have made that's been uncharacteristic, usually they promote coaches within. You look at Coach Tomlin, Randy Fichtner. When they had him as offensive coordinator, he was a quarterback's coach. Matt Canada was a position coach. They promoted within. They went outside this organization to bring in Arthur Smith. The man got fired from the Atlanta Falcons and that job. They went on the outside and they said, we're going to try something different. We'll bring in Arthur Smith. They're getting desperate at this point. They're trying different things. If this doesn't work, you really have to question Coach Tomlin as a head coach. But I like the offseason. They're being aggressive. And what you trade to get Jonnu Smith was a late round pick. I know the full trade is Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith. And you trade a 7th round pick to bring in Jonnu. And you let Mika Fitzpatrick go to the Dolphins back to reunite to them for Jalen Ramsey. So it's not a terrible trade. It's a blockbuster trade for sure. The first trade that came out when it first broke out by Adam Schefter, it was player for player. It was Mika Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey. Then more news came out. I like the offseason so far, but it's time to go out there and perform. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Steelers so far, adding in Jonnu Smith, Jalen Ramsey, DK Metcalf, and Aaron Rodgers. And before I let you guys go, Najee Harris is no longer here. Since we're talking about everything, Najee Harris is now with the Chargers. They selected him in the first round. Omar Khan didn't. Kevin Colbert did. That was his last first-round pick. Najee Harris is not a bad running back, but he was not a first-round pick type of running back. You add in Caleb Johnson from Iowa, who's a very good running back. I think that he reminds me a lot of DeMarco Murray. I think that's the player that he can become at this level with the right offensive line play. He runs similar to DeMarco Murray, and he doesn't have a fumbling issue. And you still have Jalen Warren on the back end who can come in. Right now, Jalen Warren is expected to be the starter. You don't want Jalen Warren to be your bell cow. Jalen Warren can handle 20 carries one week. The next week, he may have 15 to 20 carries. He may leave the game early. And that's what happened last year. He was beat up. Very good running back. He's more explosive than Najee Harris. But you want to save some of that juice. Give him 15 touches a game. That's the way to go with him. And mix in Caleb Johnson. Early on, you may want to ease Caleb Johnson in, but I can see Caleb Johnson being the bell cow by the end of his rookie season. The Steelers, they have talent. But if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.